Let's go to, like Irvo's law in Virginia. I have a couple of Virginians here who are tuned in, and they want to know. For those who maybe don't remember, you'll remember there was a Kenyan who was smothered to death by police in Virginia, somewhere near Richmond, Virginia, and he was going through a mental health episode.
Crisis.
And we hosted hosted the brother. Soon after that happened, and of course the family won a civil suit against like those police departments, and there's actually a law that's right now in the works in the Virginia Assembly. So Mosh, please tell us a bit about this law before we get to the final topic of the day, which is going to be about MCSK and the wars Kenyan artists are experiencing. Mosh.
So the Kenyan, it was called Irvo. IRVO, Irvo Otieno. And Irvo Otieno basically, unfortunately, like Ali said, was he had a mental crisis, and basically was initially, they claimed that he was taken to a mental facility, and then he acted out there. Then he got violent, and then he was arrested at this mental facility and taken to, I think, a state. A county hospital.
Was it a hospital? Yeah,
I think it was a county hospital or something that he was taken to. Somewhere, and shortly after that, he passed away. And when I say he passed away, he was, like Ali said, he was
crushed to death.
Murdered. Yes, he had about 10 people on him.
It was quite a number of.
It was about 10
murdered.
people. It was about 10 people on him, and I think 7 of them were cops or something, and 2 or 3 were mental health workers or something like that. I think that's the correct definition. So something that did come out in all of this was that between the time he got arrested / taken to the hospital and when he passed away, I think it was like a 2 or 3 day window. And in that time frame, when he was in the mental facility or had been taken to a mental place to be evaluated, he was calling out for his mother. Now, his mother kept going to this place, and she was never allowed to see him. So what the Irvo's law is all about is that they basically came in and said, put some legislation together with the current sitting governor, Glenn, what's his name?
Glenn Youngkin.
Youngkin, sorry, I was saying Hawkins. Glenn Youngkin. And basically what it is that he said that he would support this law, or should I say pass the law once it comes across his desk. The thing about this particular law is that they are saying that whenever a loved one is getting it's experiencing a mental health crisis after receiving an emergency custody order, that they would allow families to be with their loved one, meaning that in the case where, say in Irvo's case, where he was around strangers, he couldn't see anybody who was familiar. He called out for his mother. His mom was not there. And we're talking about a 28-year-old. So it's not like he's a young guy. But at that point in time when you have that crisis, you need somebody to de-escalate the situation. And cops or people who are not your safe space could be triggers. So to avoid those sorts of triggers, then at least having a family member or a safe space, quote unquote, maybe it could be a mental health provider who you're used to seeing, when those sorts of things happen, then that could potentially de-escalate this person to the point where they're not violent, they're not being, unreasonable, because again, they are in crisis. It's a mental health issue. So basically, Irvo's law is to allow for the family to get access to this particular person when they are in this mental health crisis. And it seems like basically without it being put into law, then whoever is in charge of the facility, the place, whether it's the law enforcement or the mental health providers, they can refuse. But once the law is there, they say that as long as this person is family, you can't refuse.
Yeah.
You have to allow them to see this person, whether it's, under supervision or whatever. I'm sure they would craft that, and that's part of the law that's been crafted. So anyway, this was declared. Irvo's law was brought into place in December. I think it was December 14th is when they announced it last year, and they actually just passed it on Thursday. I guess Thursday, yesterday. They passed it in the Senate.
Okay.
In Virginia. And it's called the Senate Bill 546, also known as Irvo's Law. It was passed unanimously in a Senate committee Jana morning, and it received full support from the Senate and House subcommittee. And like the governor said, once it comes across his desk, he's going to sign it.
So from the committee, it still has to go to the General Assembly first, and then it will go to the governor's desk.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So at this point, that's where we are. And this, I think, will help a lot of people. But again, remember, this is Virginia, and I think that this is going to be set a precedent, probably for other states to pass a similar law. Because, and I'm surprised that to date, mental health providers have not, or mental health caregivers or providers have not brought this up before to legislature. And maybe again, it takes somebody passing away for people to actually realize that this is something needed, because our law enforcement are not trained mental health.
I think there's been
providers.
Some attempts to get some laws through, but I think it's also important to understand that these state legislatures, they're also sometimes like cartels.
Yes, yeah, by the way, this thing didn't just, they actually tried to change it. And I think it got to a point, because they passed it unanimously, it got to a point where, normally people try to throw things in. Mm-hmm. They were not allowing that. Those games, the games that they normally play of going in and adding at we want a river over there. Those things, that didn't happen.
I know. I wish Annette was here, because she can go into detail of how sometimes these local legislatures operate and what you need to do just to get to get a bill to go, because if a committee cannot take it, because the committees is where bills are, a committee can decide we're not even considering this, and it's never going to make it to the floor. So that's where I think there are people who had previously tried, but because this was such a public thing, it's very difficult to keep it away from the eyes.
Sweep it under the rug.
It's hard to sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. There are some organizations that actually craft legislations that go to different, because unasikia a certain law has been passed in so many different states, and you wonder, kwani were these legislators somewhere in a meeting and they decided that this is what they want to do? No, there's
lobbyists.
There's certain clandestine organizations that even write some of these laws. And these laws are written by the state. These are the laws that impact your day-to-day bone.
Correct.